Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. This is the weekly news wrap up for Friday, May 10th, 2019, the WNW 383. I'm doing my weekly news wrap up a little different today. I'm going to key it off President Trump's impromptu press conference. He had a press conference talking about the spiraling healthcare and what he wants to do to try to curtail that and surprise billing. And once Congress, Democrats, Republicans work together, then he gave a surprise health a press conference. And he was there talking about healthcare freedom and the spiraling stuff. But then he took questions. People asked him about North Korea's missile testing. He said, yeah, that's correct. They tested missiles. I hope they don't blow it. We also had a missile test as well. This is a multiple missile test from North Korea, but they fired two, what they thought were short range missiles. We fired two about a few minutes after that. They said it was a coincidence, but I don't think so. Donald Trump did issue the word saying, well, I don't think he'll blow it in terms of Kim Jong-un, with the deal that's already done. But, you have this whole China deal working, and all of a sudden, Kim Jong-un starts sending off missiles. You have them lose the port of Long Beach, China. That was a Trumpian move. You have Trump talking about China, saying they renegotiated the deal. And he was going to add another, $25 billion in tariffs, more tariffs going to be going on. He talked about China saying that, you can't renegotiate the deal. I'm sure they're pissed that they had the Port of Long Beach closed, but he talked about intellectual property. There's also other things involved that China, if you work in China, we have to have access to your servers. This is what the Huawei thing is all about, and 5G in part. Yes, I know it's dangerous, and I haven't gotten around to talking about it. Dr. Dave Janda is looking into that for me, so we're going to talk about that sometime at some juncture. But yes, that is coming. But the other part of 5G is that China wants to, have Huawei do it and control all phone calls and all records and everything else. China would be our overlord. And they also want access to our computers if you do business over there, not to mention intellectual property theft and them becoming the number one 51% shareholder in every company that does business over there in China. I don't understand how General Motors wants to build cars over there. Mary Barra is an absolute buffoon idiot to basically take the company and give it to China slowly. But give it to China she will, which they should fire her. She's also not making the Chevy Impala anymore, but I digress. This is all this press conference. I couldn't believe it. I'm sitting here going, hit the record button. And he is doing this no teleprompter, no notes, just impromptu off the top of his head, talking about the China deal. And he says, that basically we've rebuilt China's economy. If you take a look at the World Trade Organization deal, they went from flatline to boom, taking off. And he says, we rebuilt their country for them. And we couldn't have done this without this, $500 billion a year trade deficit that we have, or $380 billion. And I don't know exactly what the deficit is, but it's billions of dollars. Trump brought this up. He also talked about that he was asked a question, and I gotta say, I thought the press was respectful for a change. They asked about Don Jr. being subpoenaed by Richard Burr. Incidentally, Richard Burr's office has closed down almost. They were getting calls from angry voters here in North Carolina. He brought this up. He sent out this subpoena to testify in front of the Senate. And I don't know, maybe Richard Burr, who was one of the people on the bipartisan, him and Warner, I think. They found no collusion and no obstruction, and found Trump did nothing wrong. Maybe he didn't know that his Senate issued that report along with the House had a report along with the FBI before they ever installed Mueller. And the Mueller report also said the same thing. But I digress. He talked about that and said it's really unfair. And he brought up Fusion GPS and this Russian, quote, agent, honeypot female, whatever you want to call it. Some people call it honeypot. I mean, no disrespect to her at all. Nalaskaya, I think is her name. And Bettina. This was all set up with Fusion GPS, which is a Democrat dirty trick group, basically. And that she talked with Fusion GPS before the meeting, and it was supposedly about adoptions, the Magnitsky Act. Was supposedly about that, and then after she reported back to Fusion GPS. And Don Jr. he's already had hours and hours, I don't know, 20, 30 hours of testimony with Mueller and and with the Senate and other testimony, written testimony, documents turned over, and now they want a do-over. That's what Donald Trump said. He says basically they want a do-over. They didn't like the outcome, and they want a do-over. He says, I went to a rally in Wisconsin recently, and people want to know how it started, and that is where the rubber is going to hit the road, because the FBI, and I've been telling you this came out with a Strzok and Page talk back and forth. They talked about how Lisa Page testified there was no crime when Mueller was seated. He was illegitimate, folks. The FBI found no crime. Mueller found no crime. The Senate found no crime. The House found no crime. Okay? But Congressman Schiff, he's got evidence. Of course, he hasn't shown it to anybody. But this is the problem with the FBI, and that is FBI Steele story falls apart. False intel media contacts were flagged before FISA. Before they applied to FISA, before they used this dossier, they knew, the FBI, they knew it was bogus, faked, should not have been used, even though they said it had been verified and it was okay. And they used this to spy on Donald Trump and his campaign, and ultimately his administration. I mean, they had 4 FISA warrants signed for spying on Trump and associates and people that worked for him and campaign people. And part of what did Steele get fired for? Well, they said because he leaked things to the press. But, some people are pointing to the fact, John Solomon, who broke the story on the Hill, who broke this to Hill, John Solomon, he said that, that this was maybe part of his outreach. He was managing the New York Times, this is the Solomon story, and the Washington Post. Who's been out recently talking about how this dossier is bogus, and this thing may be a hoax, that there may be some real problems with the investigation? That'd be the New York Times and the Washington Post. But he was basically managing mainstream media. Ooh, what does Strzok and Page say in their text back and forth? They said they had a media leak strategy. I'm telling you, folks, some of these media companies are going to be in big, big trouble. The managers, not the reporters. The reporters, and all the way up to the managers, they had to approve this stuff. And this is just more of the same. They made it up, folks. I don't know how else I can get around this. Trump brought this up. He brought up the Fusion GPS whole, they call it the Russian tower meeting, and it's bogus. And the phone calls afterwards, people that Don Jr. knew in NASCAR and other, this whole thing is a desperate attempt by the Democrats to come up with something because they know what's coming. And what did Donald Trump say? All my supporters want to know how this started. They want to know how this hoax began. And it's treason, folks. The hoax began because they wanted an issue to try to knock out a duly elected president. This went on for 2 years. This hurt us for national security. It hurt us, our relations with Russia. It hurt us. It hurt our stature around the globe. People should be going to jail for this. And I think it's going to happen. But Trump wants to know how this started. And I think this is why they're doing this, with Barr, holding him in contempt. And they say, well, you did that with Eric Holder. Eric Holder gave weapons to drug cartels, and they ended up killing one of our border agents. Maybe they were trying to gin up some issue where they could, start some gun control or whatever. But how dare the Republicans in the House want information about Eric Holder giving guns to Mexican drug cartels, and one of our border agents, Brian Terry, was killed with one of those guns. But, this is them holding him in contempt because he's not coming up with the entire Mueller investigation. Well, he has most of the investigation unredacted, and especially the top members of the House of Representatives. I mean, it's just a few percentage points. And by law, These are the things that he has to keep redacted by law, by statute. I guess if he had redacted the whole report and handed it to the Democrats, they'd say, wow, you broke the law. I mean, there's no winning here. They're going to hold on to this con as long as they can. And that's what this is about. It's really quite frightening that the Democrats are doing this. They're not working on health care. They're not working on the huge border issue. We have in the last few months, 150 or 160,000 people were scattered out throughout the Southwest and the rest of the country. They don't know who's coming in. Trump's working frantically to try to build a wall. They've got this asylum loophole that they're coming up with. The Democrats doing nothing. But the New York Times actually wrote an op-ed piece saying they should give Trump his border wall money. All of a sudden, some neurons touched together at the New York Times, and they said, give him his money. It's a crisis at the border. And maybe they're doing that so they can curry some favors. So maybe, Trump won't be so hard on them because, this media leak strategy, I think it could have involved the New York Times and the Washington Post. Steele was leaking stuff to him. Did they know it? Was he telling them this is all bogus and we're just trying to take him down and you'll work with us, right? You'll work with us, right? You don't have a First Amendment exemption to commit sedition and treason. You don't. But this was all in the press conference. And, it also came up that we were sending an aircraft carrier, also 4 B-52 bombers. Supposedly we had information given to us about a possible attack. Trump actually said, you don't want to know what we know. But I'm going to send, an aircraft. He sent the aircraft, it's a whole carrier group, which includes a nuclear-armed submarine and other destroyers and other ships around the carrier. It's a whole group. It's not just one ship. And, he says, we have it packed full. We hope we don't have to use it. People say, well, is military conflict possible? Trump said, well, yeah, I hope that's not the case. But, we had a warning, and you don't want to know what we know. And the 4 B-52 bombers also heading to the area so where they can use them and put them in proximity. Maybe they'll be on Diego Garcia. I don't know. But the whole thing is really kind of going crazy. He came back to North Korea. China, he didn't bring up the Long Beach port, which he took away from China, one of the biggest ports that China should not be controlling in America. We should not have China controlling a major seaport on the West Coast. That shouldn't happen. I don't think it's any small coincidence that all of a sudden North Korea starts firing missiles when we have this trade deal. Donald Trump said Xi Jinping wrote him a beautiful letter. And they asked to come back to the table. He didn't. He said they did. He was just ready to put tariffs on China. According to Michael Pinto, China's not doing as good as people think they're doing. I mean, they exploded their debt from $10 trillion in 2007, according to Pinto, up to $40 trillion. That's actually arguably more than us in that short of a period of time. But we also have a huge amount of debt, if you can count the $22 trillion that we already have, and then the $21 trillion missing money, according to Dr. Mark Skidmore. I mean, there's debt everywhere you look, everywhere around the world. Everywhere around the world, people are printing money and packing it into bonds, and they're hiding debt, and it's absolutely unbelievable. Really, it's quite unbelievable. He also made news by saying John Kerry broke the law. He should be charged and prosecuted under the Logan Act. And that's a huge statement. A former Secretary of State, he admits, it's widely reported he was over in Iran talking to them about the Iran deal. Now, you know what I think about the Iran deal. It was unsigned. That is a fact. That's not what I think. That's according to a letter from the Kerry State Department, Lisa Freifeld, to then Congressman Mike Pompeo. You can Google that letter and scroll down. There's a couple of people who have the actual letter, and it says, this is not a treaty. This is not a signed agreement. Okay, they say, we voted on it in the UN. Who cares about the UN? It's not a treaty. It has no weight backing with the United States of America. It needed to be a treaty and voted on in the Senate. And they said President Obama signed it. Nothing was signed. This is not a signed agreement. Nobody signed it. And that's a total fraud. Donald Trump talked about how terrible the Iranian economy is doing and how much inflation they have over there. And, the Iranians are threatening to start enriching nuclear material again for nuclear weapons. Donald Trump said, we just don't want them to have nuclear weapons. I don't have anything out against anything. I'm not out for Iran. I'm not trying to hurt them, says Donald Trump. But then again, there you have it. I mean, you have a lot of news packed into a press conference where he's answering this stuff off the cuff. And I got to say that the press was actually respectful. They asked him legitimate questions. I couldn't believe it. But the Trump talking about Kerry being prosecuted, listen, I think there's some hidden meaning there, me personally. I think that Trump is basically pointing to Kerry like, listen, you broke the law. And it's not just that law. I personally think, you're over there, Iran, after you're out of the Secretary of State office and you're working a deal in Iran, you're undermining America. Trump actually said Kerry is telling Iran not to call me. That's a bad idea. They say he is actually interfering. And of course, that's what the Logan is. You can't have private citizens, trying to usurp the United States government. Did he break the Logan Act? I don't know. His press people, his spokespeople say he didn't break the Logan Act and he stopped talking to Iran after we pulled out of the nuclear deal. The nuclear fraud that nobody signed. That a top Iranian advisor threatened on Twitter to expose all the people that took bribes in this fraud. Where we flew C-130s in with pallets and pallets of $100 bills. Fraud. But he says, John Kerry didn't talk to Iran after we pulled out. Well, he talked to him before. You don't think Donald Trump has access to NSA information? You don't think he's briefed about what John Kerry is doing and talking with on the electronic channels with Iran? I mean, Kerry's got to be some idiot buffoon, or he's so freaked out that he has to calm their fears and not have them talk to Trump. Gee, what would happen if Donald Trump and maybe a top Iranian official talked, and he'd say, "Come on, you bribed these people, right? Yeah, we did. You didn't sign anything. We didn't sign. Nobody signed anything. That was part of the deal, right? Yeah, that was right. Yeah, that was right. How many pallets of money did they send you? What did they send you? They said it was X amount, but it was, no, it was billions." But we took the money. I mean, what might they say if Kerry, according to President Trump, is telling them not to talk to Trump or his administration? You don't think they would ask those questions about this deal? Yeah. That's just yet. We haven't gotten to that. You haven't heard much about that. But when Trump talked about John Kerry, and he was not happy about it. He didn't mention it like, He mentioned it like, he's breaking the law. He ought to be prosecuted. And then another thing he brought up was the Germans and NATO, which, he said, before me, nobody paid their fair share. After me, they got an extra $100 billion. And he says, one of the big problems that Trump has with Germany is that, they're not paying they pay 1.3. Let's just say it's 1%. They should be paying 2% of their GDP, but it's closer to 1%. And then they're doing business and paying Russia, supposedly the bad guys, he said. They're not the bad guys, they're just, competitors. But he said they're paying them, and we're supposed to be protecting them from Russia. So, I mean, what a press conference. I'm like, whoa. Anything you wanted to know, I mean, that was worth reading all the newspapers and all the alt news sites, and there's some good ones, Breitbart, Zero Hedge, Drudge, DaveJanet.com, USAY. It was better than reading all of them all together. It was absolutely unbelievable. He also brought up, and this is the other thing I wanted to bring up, because I couldn't believe all the stuff he brought up and all the numbers he had off the top of his head. They're holding up, money, disaster money for the states in the continental U.S., and he said, he says, Puerto Rico, they want to give them more money. He says, we gave them $91 billion. And I thought, $91 billion. Let's see. They defaulted. That debt they defaulted on was $74 billion. They did bail out that debt. I think they won't tell you that. What did they do? What did little Puerto Rico do with $91 billion? And Trump said, hey, listen, Texas only got $30 billion with the rains they had. Florida, they've got, in other words, they said Puerto Rico got more money after a hurricane, after a major strike from the storm than any other state ever. Texas only got $30 billion. Florida only got $12 billion. They got $91 billion. What flew through my mind is They paid off that dang bond debt. And they still had 20-something, 24 billion to spare. So it was 74 billion. And they got $91 billion according to the president. He says, now Congress gave it to him, but he signed off on it. $91 billion? Folks. That's horrible. You know, and why did he sign that? I don't have no idea. Are they paying that bond day with it? At least some of it has to be. Puerto Rico's the biggest fraud fest. You know, they're not a state, they're a territory. But, you know, they've voted on and have been close to teetering on trying to vote themselves to be a state. But just unbelievable. I mean, 74 billion in bond debt. You know, a quick math here would give them what? 27 billion. Hold on. 91. I'm sorry. 27, 74, 27. Yeah. They'd have 27 extra billion. I mean, Texas, with their, how many millions of people, what does Florida have? 14 million people? Puerto Rico has 3 million. And they gave them $91 billion? What's going on with that? Come on. They had an extra 27 billion to burn. I mean, I'll bet you that bond debt gets retired. We'll see. I don't know that for a fact. I don't know that. I'll tell you some stuff that the mainstream media is not covering, and I can't believe they did this. This is the GOP saying, hey, the Russia case is closed. Well, nope. They're subpoenaing Don Jr., so I guess it's not as closed as you think it is. But here's something that's not being talked about. And, you know, you have a newspaper like this, Gannett. Gannett was a buyout target. A company by the name of MNG offered him $12 a share. Now the shares are $8.76. It's because, you know, they're not really a newspaper. They're kind of a thought-shaping scheme. And here's a story they buried this story. Here it is. Prosecutors lay out trafficking case against self-help guru. Trafficking. You mean sex trafficking. You mean the NXIVM sex trafficking case. Folks, this is too stupid to be stupid. You got a newspaper. It's flagging. It's lost 40% since they split with their television and newspaper division, Tenga, and now GCI, which is Gannett. So they split that off. It's tanking, and a prosecutor lays out trafficking, not sex trafficking, sex slaves, and this is unbelievable. And this is the NXIVM case right here. And they're covering this like, just a little story, just a little trafficking. We're talking about the daughter of a movie star, Catherine Oxenberg. You're talking about an heiress to the Seagram's fortune involved in this. I think she pled guilty to some charges. You're talking about an actress that was in the Superman hit TV show. Oh, but it's sex trafficking. And you think that would be on the front page of the newspaper, but nope. Just like the El Chapo and what he was spilling about sex trafficking and things that he was doing there. You know, just like the pedophile island case with the people involved in that. And that's a case ongoing. Jeffrey Epstein lost his immunity deal that the Obama administration gave him. He has pedophile island. Does he have videotape of, you know, all kinds of celebrities and all kinds of dignitaries having some crazy sex with people? I don't know. But wow, I mean, he does have an island that is widely recognized as pedophile island, which to me, is he having sex crimes with children and adults? I don't know. But anyway, none of this is being covered in the mainstream press is what I'm telling you. You have Joe Biden out there in Hollywood saying we need to make America what it used to be. Yeah, we could cover up our sex crimes, and we could have all the child trafficking we wanted. We can bribe our kids into college, to the best universities, and nobody will ever know the wiser. And we can, we can fly over a country and spit on them and look down on them, and we never have to worry about them because we're in control. Yeah, Joe Biden, let's make America what it used to be before Donald Trump. Right. I want to get into a little bit on the economy here. And, China was hitting back with this. They have $1 trillion of our debt. They supposedly boycotted the Treasury auction, which made the Treasury go kind of crazy. Things are going kind of wacky in Congress. Gregory Mannarino said, most people called me and said, most people don't realize that we don't have a new debt ceiling, we don't have a budget. The Treasury is borrowing money against federal retirement funds. I think we can last until September. Nobody knows this is going on. Are the Democrats working on this? No. Oh, but they're going to subpoena more people. They're going to, hit Barr with a contempt charge, though, for a case that's been already settled by a bunch of Democrats, mostly. The prosecutors were. This is unbelievable, folks. We don't have a budget. We don't have a debt ceiling. And Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, is taking extraordinary measures to keep the government floating. It's almost like the Democrats and maybe the right-wing Republicans want to crash the United States government. I don't know. Here's a chart, and this is from these folks here, Alhambra. So Alhambra, here's the chart. And I like things that just show you what's going on all in one chart. And this is, this is 17. This is just before Trump was elected. And they say rising rates mean recovery. Well, look what we got all the way up until 2018, just before 19. Rising rates spell recovery. This is the 10-year. Okay, and then bam, they came down. And lower rates talk about liquidity and risks. Point to liquidity and risk. So you see lower rates, liquidity, and risk. And I'm telling you, the risk with the economy, this is the inverted yield curve phenomenon. And it's almost inverted. A lot of the different yields are inverted, but the ones I'm watching is the 1 month. What can you get for 1 month money? Okay, 2.43%. The 10-year Treasury is 2.45%. 1 month, you can get 2.43%. Can you imagine a bank going, well, Mr. Hunter, for 1 month, we'll pay you 2.43%. But if you tie your money up for another 10 years, we'll pay you 2.45%. How's that sound? Which tells you that things are out of whack. And that things aren't going very well, which may be the reason why Donald Trump is asking for a 1% rate cut. John Williams came on here and said, listen, we did have a recovery, but the Fed killed it off by raising rates. They wanted to also normalize their balance sheet. And they kept raising rates, and who knows how that's going to turn out. It's not going to turn out great, I don't think. And how much hardball are the Chinese going to play? I don't know. There's a lot of national security issues in this deal. And they just lost the port of Long Beach, okay? Another thing that I had Charles Nenner, who I have to get on. I've been contacted by them, and if you're watching this, I'm sorry I haven't contacted you back yet. I've just been up to my tail and things to do. But anyway, Charles Nenner came on and I said, where would be a problem, a demarcation line that Deutsche Bank, which William K. Black came on and said, they're masquerading as a bank, but they're really, just a crime center. But William K. Black, the banking expert, William Black, he professor of economics and white-collar crime. But anyway, I asked Charles Nenner, the great renowned cycle guy, Charles Nenner, I said, where would you be worried? And, at the time it was $9 or $10 a share. And now he said, well, if it goes below $8 a share and stays there, then you got a problem. And for a while, it was below $8 a share. And this is just another one of these warning signs, folks. This is a big European bank. They just failed merging them with another sick bank, Commerzbank in Germany. They've got, 40 trillion, somewhere in that neighborhood. It's a mind-boggling number of leverage derivatives, okay? Which is, 10 times the economy of Germany. One bank in Germany has leveraged 10 times the GDP of Germany. And so Deutsche Bank, late Thursday night, 778. That's the share price, 778. And so according to Nenner, he said that if it comes down below $8 and stays there, that's a problem. Listen, folks, I don't know what's going to happen. Are we going to get a big giant reset? Yes, but there are going to be people hurting this reset, so you got to get on the right side of the reset. I do have I do have former firefighter Mark Taylor. He's going to be the early Sunday release. Now, this is his book, but he's got an updated and expanded version of the book. They went through the book, and through his prophecies, they put updates to what happened to the prophecy. Like he said that we'd have energy, and this is back when we were pretty much energy dependent, and coal production went way up, natural gas production went way up, oil production went way up, and supposedly, reportedly, we're no longer an energy dependent country anymore, which is probably the reason why Donald Trump can do what he can do in the Middle East and with China and other stuff. China's very dependent on Middle East oil. Which is another reason why these sanctions against Iran and not letting other countries buy their oil to get them to come to the table and negotiate for a real nuclear deal are dicey. But Mark Taylor is going to be on the early Sunday release. He's got a bunch of great anecdotes and a bunch of updates to the prophecies that he's had and some of the things he thinks going on. Of course, these prophecies come from God the Father and not from, he's very careful about that, not from him. I just want to let you know he's the early Sunday release, about a 45-minute interview. Nice guy. He's become a friend of mine. But I get nothing for promoting his book, but he does have the book, and I'm going to have him on to talk about how it's updated and what he thinks is going on right now and what he thinks is coming down the pipe. And it's enlightening. It's very enlightening. And with that, I'm going to close and tell you thank you very much for your comments and your donations. That helps us out. I have less and less people bouncing back, but make sure you check your spam file. People are still telling me, listen, I checked my spam file and found your thank you note or found your email or answer to me for your question or whatever. Just make sure you do that. And before I close, I just wanted to let you know, please, with all this information, don't be fearful. Be informed. Be prepared. Don't be fearful. Mark Taylor does talk about the economy. And he sticks by his guns and said, we are going to do okay. Doesn't mean we'll have rough spots. But America's not going to go away, and we're not going to, he doesn't think we're going to be in any depression. Yeah, I hope he's right. He was right about the economy getting better, prophesied that, and it did get better. Prepare yourself mentally, physically, above all spiritually. Fear not, God the Father, Son, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit are all firmly in control.